Hey, this is Meloriota Lucy, and you're listening to the Rough Concept Podcast. So I'm going to tell you about a moment that I know was the moment I needed, especially as I recorded for this podcast. Let me tell y'all something. This podcast journey, this is a body of work. This is a true body of work that I believe I put my heart and soul into. And I believe that because I had to learn a lot about myself, and I had to learn the patterns and the limits that I put on myself in terms of using my voice. Something that should have been done, before. This podcast was supposed to go live at the top of the year. And I kept pushing it back. And now looking back on it, I know with every fiber of my being that I had to learn a lot to get here. There were some barriers, some shackles that I had to let fall off of me for this to happen. And it was this moment, the day I met Paul, a podcast producer from Fort Worth, Texas. That was the moment I needed. And let's start from the top. So I was a guest on the Raising Joy podcast by Cook Children's Hospital. And I was invited to talk about my family's journey. I was there to share how we navigated my daughter Emery being diagnosed with aplastic anemia and her bone marrow transplant process, how Kevin and I as parents prepare for that mentally, how we care for ourselves, care for our family, how our lives changed tremendously, and how it affected us mentally, and how it affected us spiritually and physically, in our marriage and everything. I'll be sure to share that episode with y'all in the show notes. But it's an incredible episode. But starting from the top, I walked into Paul's podcast studio and we introduced ourselves. He asked me about my work. He asked me about what I do, what story I was going to share on the podcast. So we chopping it up, I'm getting to know Paul, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, I love this guy. Like, he's cool. He laid back. And I knew that he was going to be a fun producer to work with because he was really chill. And mind you, at this time, I was recording for the Rough Concept podcast. So I was letting them know, I'm starting my own podcast. So this is really cool to know that you're here for future reference if I have guests and I want to bring them to the studio. And yeah, so everything was going great. We were laughing and talking. So by the time we got to his studio to record me on video, as we're talking, we still having conversation. He's clicking stuff and turning on gadgets and adjusting lights. And in my head, I'm curling up in fetal position because I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to be on camera. Like, it's cool. Audio was cool. I was just getting used to audio. So as he's clicking these gadgets and preparing the set, in my head, I'm shrinking inside. Like, we're really about to do this. Damn, I'm really about to be on camera. He asked me the first question, and he presses record. He asked me the first question, and I start to talk. But before I could say anything more than like 3 words, Paul stops me in my tracks. Whoa, 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 whoa. He said, that man said, whoa, who is this? This is not the person I've been talking to for the last 30 minutes. Where'd you go? What happened to you? So in my head, I'm like, now what now? That man called me out. And the fact that he called me out on something that I know I do. This is a pattern that I've had for so long after being told, like, you're too much, too loud, all the things that, I've heard over my life. being my full-blown self, right? Or feeling like people aren't taking me seriously, or, being misunderstood. Like, all those things just came to surface in that moment. And I sounded way different to Paul once he pressed record and asked me that first question. So in this moment, right, I'm sitting here, he asked me this question. I'm just like, it's the lights, it's the camera, it's all the things. Like, I feel like once he pressed record, it was business in that moment. Like, all right, I got to show up. I got to, be excellent at this thing. I got to, all of that. In my head, I was like, dang, this is what I do. This is what I've been doing in the closet with my podcast mic and recording these episodes. I have been confining myself. I've been shrinking myself to be palatable to this group of people, from what I've known has been said about me, or this group of people in my head that I felt misunderstood me or didn't get me. And this is something that I've dealt with for a while. And I knew that God brought this podcast to my life, or this idea. As a matter of fact, it was an idea from Deja Riley, my girl. She consulted me and helped me put all of my floating thoughts in its place. And she brought up the idea of the podcast. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe later. But I was feeling pulled to actually do the podcast. And especially, once you get that idea that you cannot forget, you got to see it through, right? So once she dropped that seed, and I was like, oh, a podcast would be cool. Maybe later. I don't think that's something that I'm really ready to do. I think in that moment, him saying that out loud to me just confirmed it. It brought everything to surface. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I do in this space. When the camera's on me, or someone presses record, or someone, puts a mic in my face, I shrink. And doing that, and this is what my therapist says, doing that when I'm not fully my authentic self, I am doing not only myself a disservice, but the people around me, a disservice to the people around me. And that was a wake-up call. So, thanks to Paul for coming for my neck that day. And if it wasn't for that moment, it was something that I knew and I felt already, but he said it out loud. He called me out. So I'm grateful to Paul, and I'm grateful to that experience. But I needed his honesty. I needed him to call me out on that, because that's exactly what I had done. Because, I'm not doing that anymore. Obviously, I'm yelling in your ear right now, talking about this story. But in that moment, I realized that it was something that I continuously did to myself. And this is one of many lessons I've learned during this podcast journey. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned recording this podcast and interviewing these amazing artists and telling you my story is that nobody can mute you but you. Nobody can stop you from sharing your story. Nobody can stop you from speaking life into anything but you. No one can make you feel any way. No one has that control over you. And I've allowed people's idea of me or perception of me, I allowed that to control how much of myself, how much I show up to any space, to make sure I wasn't too much, or to make sure I wasn't too loud, or make sure I didn't offend anybody, to make sure I'm understood. What was I doing? And there are many moments outside of Paul's telling me not to turn myself down, because after that he was like, you're turning yourself down. Why'd you do that? He really was bummed out. He said, you have this big personality And you like turned it off once I turned the cameras on and I told you that we were about to start. So we go back and forth. I talked to him about it and actually let him know, like, this is what I'm facing right now, you know, as I'm developing and creating this podcast. And he was just like, yeah, we want the person that walked in here. I want to talk to her. I don't know who this person is, but the girl that I've been talking to for the last 30 minutes, that's the girl I want to talk to. When you think of a body of work, like a collection, a painting of paintings, of poems, of music, of pottery, or, you know, anything, sketches, whatever. When you think of your body of work, you are essentially telling a story. You are essentially like creating. And while we create, and I know authenticity gets thrown up. People talk about authenticity all at every corner of the social media space. But it is that bottom line, the authenticity. You are you, and that is your power. Your DNA, your makeup is like no one else's. So your perspective is like no one else's. You can go through the same, you know, event as one person, as another person, and y'all will still have different perspectives, different experiences of that same event. So it's important that while we create anything, we show up as our full selves, because your people are gonna find you and they gonna rock with you. And the people that aren't for you won't. And that is okay. There are billions of people, huge amounts of people. You got your people, right? So that's one thing I've learned. The authenticity, like fully showing up as your full blown self and knowing that your words, your work, your art, your creations will rest on the eyes and ears of the people who need to see and hear it. And now that I think of this podcast, season 1 of the Rough Concept podcast, and the ideas and the vision that I had, and I was just like, I'm following through with this. It may sound crazy. It may sound crazy, but I'm going to see it through. People didn't understand it. And I went through my whole little moment of like, oh my God, I feel so misunderstood. And my husband was like, you got the vision. You're the one that God gave the vision. We can't see it the way you can see it, the way that God put it in you. Show us what you're talking about. He said, let's stop talking about what you're going to do. Show us what you're talking about, babe. That's it. Like, no one can tell your story like you can tell it. No one can bring forth a vision like you can, right? So this body of work, season 1 of the Rough Concept podcast, this is my collection of work. And when I started this podcast, the point was to create actual artwork that I can showcase at the end of the season. But what I'm learning now, because I high key, believe that while I'm planning these things and these projects, I'm leaving room for God to do his thing too. Like, we co-creating together, right? He gives me this idea and he guides me in the how, and I roll with that. And I'm learning that not everything, it doesn't have to be so black and white. And I think that's one thing that scared me with planning things and having an actual plan for a lot of things in my life, because I'm like, I don't like to be confined or, you know, put into this, oh, you have to do this X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm doing that now. I'm planning now, but I'm also keeping myself open to inspiration and open to God's guidance, because his ideas are way better than mine. I say this all the time. Now being here on the other side of this, at the end of this season, I believe that this is my body of work. I didn't use paint. I didn't use watercolor, ink. I didn't use, you know, my Procreate. I used my voice, and I took this idea and I ran with it. And this is the body of work that I have. This is what I have prepared. This body of work took growth in me. It took me letting old beliefs and thoughts fall off of me, right? It took me like showing up as my full blown self, telling my story the way I really wanted to. And I'm proud of it. It is a beautiful body of work. And creating this podcast, I've come out like lighter and just feeling so damn good. From the conversations I had, from the stories I told you on this journey, the women that I had conversation with and learning from them about their stories and realizing like, goodness, I am not alone in this journey. I am not tripping. And I hope the same for you too. While you listen to these interviews and while you listen to these other women, these other creatives, these other artists share their journey and their stories, that you feel like I'm not tripping. Because after every episode, after every interview, I came out of that interview like more and more just lighter. I was letting these beliefs that I was going through this by myself fall off of me. All of that was falling off of me the more I was having conversation with other artists and the more that I was sharing my story. Because while I was writing these stories that I was sharing on each of these episodes, I was really tapping into like my journey, just being grateful of everything I experienced that brought me to this point. Everything that I've learned about God, about myself, about life, about the people around me, about my journey, about being a wife, about being a mother, a daughter, a friend, like an artist, everything set me up to do what I'm doing right now. And that's what I've learned. And I don't take anything for granted. Anything or anyone that's been, that I've experienced, met, or learned on this journey, I don't take it lightly because it was all for this moment. And baby, this moment is going to be for the next moment, the next moment, for the next moment, right? So as I look back and reflect on the body of work that I've created, I still believe that every body of work that that I've released up until this point has required me to step out of myself, to step out of this comfort zone. And I'm here for it because I always want to grow and evolve. I always want to. So I'm just grateful for this season. I'm grateful for every person that was a part of this journey. Everybody. This is how I take this journey. But what I love about the creative process is that it's not the same for all of us. Take a listen and learn how this creative navigates their process. Yeah, it's a lot of space. It's definitely a lot of space. I've been like trying to figure out how I'm gonna work out storage. Because I really love this wall and I don't want to put anything on it. Mm-hmm. But I still need to figure out my storage in here because stuff is just pretty much everywhere. Yeah. And that just don't make no sense. But I just refuse to put anything on this wall because I just like it so much. So
it's a pretty cool. You wouldn't even put like your own artwork, like hang it on the wall behind you?
I want to. I would. There's actually a wall right here. Like I have shelves here. Let me show you. Might as well, right? I have shelves here. And then this wall, it goes all the way up to the top. So all of my artwork, I wanted to be up there. Oh, yeah. And on this wall, I just wanted to be nice. And when it comes to interior design and decorating and stuff, it's kind of like decision fatigue for me because there's so many options and so many different ways I can go about stuff that I just be like, all right, I'll just get to it when I get to it because no key in the panic.
Yeah.
So, but I do plan to put artwork up there.
Mhm.
I just don't want to cover it up too much, but we'll see, girl. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother story. That's a whole episode for itself. I started this podcast to share my journey and to share the journey of the creatives that I adore and love so much. So
Oh.
I was like, I have to reach out to Perryn. It's Perryn, right?
Mhm.
Okay, because I was like, I'm about to get on here and be like, hey, Perryn. You were like, eh. And names are important. Names are
Yeah.
important. So I just wanted to make sure. But
And
we met
you pronounce yours Mellory, right?
Melody, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Girl.
Just let me make sure. Okay.
It don't be that easy for people sometimes. They be like, malaria. I be like,
Um,
oh, okay, it's Melody. It's just Melody. But, people have different ways of spelling it and saying their name, so I get it.
yeah.
Um, but I just wanted to make sure. So, um, to kick it off, I remember finding you. I think we were all having a discussion because I think that was one of the they prompted us to communicate with each other.
Oh yeah.
And I had started working. I was like, oh my God. And I went and I found your Instagram and I was just like in love.
Oh, thank you.
Love your work so much. I think like, especially like just your style and the continuous line and how you make that work so perfectly, especially when you draw women and like body forms. I'm like
Mhm.
eating it up like every time.
Thank
So,
you.
and then ever since then, we've been talking back and forth. Yeah, so it's just been a pleasure to like get to know you in the IG world, and I'm so glad I found your work. So you had to be a part of this process. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm excited. I'm super honored, and I'm excited to be doing this right now just
Mhm.
because I've had a lot of growth. So I'm excited to share, and hopefully it'll help whoever listens and they get some kind of inspiration from it. So this is Perryn
Absolutely.
Ryan. I'm glad that we've connected on Instagram, especially during like a time where it was hard to connect with people in person, like during
Yeah.
COVID. So it was nice
Yeah.
to be and like my business started during COVID. So it was nice to like connect with you and like
Mhm.
Melissa and like other Black women artists on Instagram because I don't know, I guess it kind of just reminded me that I'm like a part of a larger community, even though right now like everybody's in isolation and like
Yeah.
you can't really see people in person. So yeah, I'm grateful for the Michaels thing because if it hadn't happened, we probably maybe we would have found each other, but it might not have
Yeah,
been
but
now. So
yeah, I agree. I agree.
waste of time.
Yeah, timing is everything.
Mhm.
So to kick things off, for those of for the people who are first learning about you and your work, I would love for you to share your journey, who you are, what you love, and why I love your work and you so much.
Okay, so it's a. I had to like write notes for myself just so I can like remember.
Same thing. When people like tell me about yourself, I'm like, man, you kind of gotta be specific. But whatever
No,
you want to share, I mean, whatever you want to share, is totally fine. Like, go for it, girl.
okay. So my full name is Perryn Ryan Ford, but I go by my first and middle name, Perryn Ryan, as my artist moniker, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm based in Brooklyn, New York, by way of DC. So I'm originally from DC. I've lived in
Hey,
New York. I've lived in New York for the last I just hit my 15-year anniversary on last
that's
Friday.
awesome.
And I've been living in Brooklyn for the last 9 years, which I really love. It's super diverse and I love my neighborhood. I get a lot of inspiration from my neighborhood. So, yeah, so that's
It's
who I
cool.
am and where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to identify myself as like a deeply spiritual, intuitive woman artist. And so all of my work is reflective of that. And I make abstract,
Love
figurative,
language. Yes.
and all of my work is representative of that. I started Well, I didn't start my business. My business started for me in 2020.
I love it.
And it was just kind of, well, actually, I would say it probably started in 2019. So I have a background in fashion design. I moved to New York to get my second degree in fashion design from Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished Parsons in 2010, and pretty much almost 10 years I worked in fashion. I worked for a lot of brands. I worked at Marc Jacobs. I freelanced at Kate Spade. I worked at Cynthia Rowell. I worked at tons of brands. And so by the time 2019 rolled around, I was just super burnt out. So I decided to quit. And I had no backup plan. There was no job. There was like minimal savings, but I was just like, I'm gonna wing it because I can't do this anymore. So I was just exhausted. So I quit, and then I went on vacation. I went to I went to Portugal and Spain, and I had the energy of just feeling like carefree, and like I knew when I got back I wasn't gonna have to be like stressed by a job. It just kind of like carried over. So when I came back, I feel like it was like the first time that I had space that wasn't being consumed by like work and, obligations to other people. So I really used that time to just like try new things. Like I bought a vintage 35 millimeter camera, and I was like, oh, let me try out photography. And then I started roller skating again pre-pandemic, because I know during the pandemic everybody was like,
it was popping. I'm not gonna lie, I bought some skates in 2020 and they are fire. And I've only ridden them like twice. I feel so bad.
No, you gotta lace them up. I go roller skating every week. Like, love it. I've made new friends like in my area just from roller skating.
That's so cool. My mom's really big. Like, she loves roller skating. Like, she be roller skating down my street, and we live on a hill, and she would roller skate. She would do it backwards. So I feel like I missed the mark, but I'm gonna work on it.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's so fun. So I started doing that, and then so before I was making woman themed artwork. I was drawing and painting these little like fruit and vegetable like pun illustrations. I have one right here. I'll show you.
I want to see, yeah.
But it was like just for fun. Oh, I can't reach it. Hold on. My little self. I need to like stand on my chair.
Girl, I stay standing on chairs to get to things. No worries.
Okay, so this was one. They were like just little like fun cartoons.
Oh, that's so fun.
Like little weird sayings. Like it says "shuck it to me, baby," because you shuck corn. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I like it. I was making those and just like having fun and posting them on my Insta. And I don't know, like I would get up every morning for like 2 months probably. I would get up every morning at like 6. So I ended up towards the end of 2019, I ended up finding a remote job, which was like my whole goal. Like, when I worked in fashion, I was just like, oh, if I could just get a job that was remote so that I could be home and like just work on whatever I want to work on, and maybe that turns into something.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a remote job pre-pandemic. So I was already home before the pandemic started. And it was in a completely different industry. So I have a bachelor's in computer information systems. So I have this remote job, it was like a tech job, but in the wellness space, which really like my lifestyle anyway.
Right. Yeah.
I was like plant-based diet and like just all about like healthy living and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is alignment, and it gives me the space to like be home. So I would get up, I worked from like 12 to 6 or something. So I would get up every morning at 6 a.m. and I would like paint these little, like record myself painting these little watercolor things and post it on Instagram every day. And it just became like cathartic, like fun for me to like show my
Yeah.
humor or whatever. But
Yeah.
like lots of friends and like just random people were like, oh, I love these. And became a habit. So it was like, oh, I look forward to you posting a new one every day. And I was just having fun. And then that turned into me teaching watercolor classes.
Uh-huh.
I've learned that I just don't have the bandwidth for like instruction. I don't think teaching is like my ministry. It was fun, but like, a lot of energy. And I just,
No, I feel that. I feel that sometimes with workshops. I'm like, man, like, and I try to make sure I'm teaching them everything that they should know. And, what if I'm teaching them the wrong way? I don't know. It's
yeah,
just, I be having thoughts too. So that's a whole nother part of that. But yeah, it's a lot of energy.
it
I,
is. And I see these other illustrators and artists with their Skillshare classes, and I'm just like, nah, like, no.
Come paint with me. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I was telling my friend. I said, instead of teaching people how to paint or draw or illustrate or do Procreate, I mean, there's some tips and stuff that I can share online. I could do that,
Yeah.
but I want a full blown class. I just don't think I'm there yet. I said, but come paint with me in the park or paint with me at the
Yeah.
coffee. Like, let's do something together. So I'm 100% there with you right now because
Yeah.
yeah.
That's actually a good idea. Like the
Mm-hmm.
anything. That's a really
Yep.
good
Yep.
Yes, I was doing the workshops and then COVID happened. So I was like, okay, well, we're at home now, not doing stuff in person. And I ended up buying my first iPad during that Christmas, like the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So I was like, okay, let me experiment and like what programs can I use and stuff. And so that's when I started drawing in Procreate. And I never really like had super intentions of like starting this business. So since I was using Procreate, that's when I started like experimenting with line work and just trying out different stuff. And something in me was like, just throw up a Squarespace page just in case. So Squarespace, like a little quick Squarespace website. And I was still posting like every day what I was making, but it wasn't the fruit and vegetable things anymore. It was like the woman themed line art. And so like a couple sales trickled in like that May, I think. And I was like, okay, like people want to buy, we'll see what happens. And I'm not really like marketing it. Like I'm not telling people like, go shop I'm not saying anything.
Right.
And um I made something. I made a small series of like three. And this woman, I don't know her and I've never met her, but I've met someone who knows who she is.
Mm-hmm.
But she literally had 1 million followers on Instagram.
Uh-huh.
And she shared one of my artworks and that just like blew up everything. Like I remember I was like laying in the bed one morning and I just hear my phone is like ding, ding, ding. It's like Squarespace payment after the other. And I was like, on. And I was like, well, what happened overnight? Like, I didn't do anything. So I was like looking on Instagram, like maybe somebody shared or whatever. And then I saw the tag from her resharing and I went to her profile and I'm like, okay, so she has 1 million followers and that's where all these people are coming from. And it turned into like, I think that was June. And that was like my first 5-figure month just from like,
yeah, 2020. Oh, those payments that came in. I said, oh, God, this is so good.
yeah. It was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just like plugging along, still doing my job or whatever, and then also doing it on the side. And yeah, I was really just like making what I wanted to make. I wasn't like chasing after projects. Like people started finding me. So like Erin Condren happened and Kate Spade happened that summer. Kate Spade happened again last summer.
Oh, which was beautiful work too.
Huh?
That was beautiful work too.
Oh, thank you.
That collab. Yeah, that was
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. So I've had like quite a few like pure leaf. You know, I'm always super grateful um when people find me and want to work with me or want to buy my art. And it makes me feel like even more aligned because I didn't like it's taken me these last 3 years to realize like this is like a super easeful process for me. And I've spent periods over these last 3 years making it difficult for myself when I
Oh,
didn't need to. And
right.
so now I'm starting to just like relax into like fully relax into like the easefulness of it. So like, you know, I'll go back home to DC. Like last around this time last year, I went home for a friend's wedding, and I went to another friend's like baby gender reveal or whatever. And
Mhm.
so like I was just catching up with all the people there, and they're like, "Oh, like you know, they have like regular 9 to 5 jobs, which is no shade, but like, you know, I
Right.
understand." And so they're super excited, like, "Oh my gosh, you get to like draw. That's so cool." And they're like, show, you know, wanting to see all the collabs and like, "Oh my God, a mural, amazing." And like a little tiny piece of me in the back of my mind, it was like, I couldn't let myself like enjoy the work because I worked
Ooh,
really hard to get here. And
right.
they would be saying all these things, and you know, I'm like, "Oh yes, cool,"
It was
but
hard for you to receive it, huh?
it was really hard for me to receive it. And
Yeah.
I've realized like just in the last several months that like I'm a person who I don't know, or I'm not aware of how easily things happen for me or to me unless someone outside of me who's witnessed it kind of points it
Oh,
out.
unless you hear it from somebody else. Yeah.
I've really just been, I was, you know, like I've kind of spent this last year of just like, okay, well, trying to unlearn the, I've been spending this last year, especially like this last 6 months, really unlearning these ideas that like you have to work hard in order to like, you know, have nice things or nice experiences or have a successful business. Like I do not like working hard. I just don't. I'm not
I mean,
interested
whose rule is that anyway?
interested in working hard. I'm not interested in like I just want to have fun. And like I have been having fun these last 3 years, but
Right.
I know that when I start to like I move myself out of that fun space when I start to like overanalyze, and it's kind of like, you know, I'm trying to convince myself that I have to do things because this is how other people are doing it and this is how it works for them. And it's like, well, that's not my process. So like, you know, I need to be comfortable in my process and like do what
Yeah.
works for me. And it's been like trial and error. I would say probably over the last like 8 months, but I finally feel like I'm getting back into my groove of like, this is what works for me. I'm gonna have fun doing what works for me. I'm not gonna stress myself out about what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And I like taking steps to get to that point. So like even with social media. So like at the end of 2021, I don't know what happened, but Instagram deleted my account. And I was just
I
like,
remember that. I remember that.
and I was just like, oh my God, I had like almost 8,000 followers. Like I was like, it took so much energy. And that kind of made me feel a little bit defeated.
Yeah.
But I also, so this is going to be a little woo woo or whatever. I know everybody doesn't
I'm the one you woo woo with, okay?
So I'm not, I'm, I know right now, like manifestation and manifesting is like a huge buzzword, but I'm not a manifester. I'm an attractor. And
Mm,
so for me, that means that as long as I'm operating from my own energy, like I trust that my energy is going to be like the portal that everything that I need comes to me.
mhm.
And that's why I say like I don't believe in hard work. Like to me, manifesting is all about externalizing and like effort, and attracting is all about like internalizing and like just being open. Like as long
Right.
as I'm open, there's enough space for everything to come to me.
Right.
So, but I also realize with that is that if my energy is not coming from a place of like positivity, like if I'm complaining and just being negative about things, then I know that I'm going to attract those things because I
Right.
attract. And
And it'll be
so
all you see.
that's it. And so
Yeah.
when my Instagram got deleted or whatever, I was like panicked probably like the first couple hours. And then I felt a sense of relief because honestly, I was like tired of Instagram. And then thirdly, I was like, you called this in. Like you're complaining about Instagram, how you hate it, you didn't want to use it and stuff. And so the universe was like, okay, well then we'll just take it away. So I was like, all right, well, that was fun. Um, so now that I'm back, I got back on Instagram like early 2022, but only because I had a partnership coming out and like
Mhm.
I needed to like post it or whatever. And I kind of was just like being lazy about it. I've basically been lazy about Instagram for the last year. But because I wasn't like, I forgot how much, I think I let myself get caught up in like, oh, algorithms and like Instagram is changing and you got to do all this and stuff and like chasing analytics and trying to get followers. Like I literally care about none of that now. I just want to have.
Right.
So even now, like I've just been like, I'm gonna start posting what I want to post, like nail art, whatever is like attached to like my creative essence. That's what I'm sharing.
Yeah.
But now that I'm on Instagram now, I am taking a different approach. So I've kind of released myself from this need of like feeling like I need to see what everybody else is creating, because I realize when I do that, it kind of, you're a creative, it triggers you like, well, my art doesn't look that good, or
Yeah. You start
maybe
comparing your art to other people.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just decided like going forward, I'm not really interested in trying to like define my work. So that frees me from like feeling like I need to compare myself to other people.
Right.
So when I'm on Instagram, like I don't really look at other people's work that much. I try to stay off the Explorer page. I actually have everyone muted. I have some friends that are like, "Oh, did you see my story?" or what. I'm like, "No, I didn't see it." And don't take
Start doing that one day. No,
do
like I agree. Like some people I mute and it's not even because of them. It's just like I need to work through my stuff. And
it.
when I see your work, I start comparing my own work. So while I'm getting myself together and,
Yeah,
and getting myself in a space where that wouldn't bother me, like it needs to be kind of out of sight, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's a human thing, you know?
yeah,
And I thought about muting I don't want to see nothing. I just wanna pour into the app and not consume it.
yeah,
And I feel like following especially artists in a large amount, like you can get there like, oh
mhm,
man, like they're getting these jobs, doing these kind of projects and stuff. And that's just a human thing.
yeah,
That's a human thing to compare sometimes. But if it gets to the point where you questioning your work, like
yeah.
that's the line. You have to establish some kind of boundary with yourself. And I feel like muting people is establishing a boundary with yourself, right?
It is
You know what I'm
absolutely
saying? So,
like I muted everyone, like stories and posts. So when
uh-huh.
I go to my Instagram, the only thing I see in my feed is whatever I've posted. I don't see
Yeah.
anybody else.
I know some people
But
that's done that too.
it
Yeah.
also it forces me to be like intentional with the app too, because instead of me being like, how they say like garbage in, garbage out, like instead of me just being fed a bunch of things that I probably don't want to see, like, and it's not even specific to artists, but just like friends that I like went to high school with and college,
You happen to follow. Yeah.
like I don't really care that like, you I don't know, tried a new recipe last night and your kids didn't like it. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
So it started from that place of like not wanting to be distracted. Like I want to go on, post, and then leave. Or if I'm on there, then okay, I want to see what this person is doing. So I get to be intentional and say, okay, I'm gonna go look at your stories. Like, oh, you
Mhm.
made this, I'm gonna repost it. Or, you know, whatever, but it's not me being fed things against my will. Like I want to be like
Yeah, you want to
a
have control over
participant.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I muted everyone. Like I don't know if you saw, but yesterday I saw something. It was like 5 tips for creatives to use social media or something. And one of the tips was like block everyone who knows you because it can prevent you from like sharing authentically, because you might feel judged if like people you know are like seeing. And I actually did that. Like I went and I didn't even know, a friend of mine told me that you can, because I was like, well, how can I like have people unfollow me without blocking them? Like I don't want to block anyone.
Yeah, right.
So my friend was telling me, he actually showed me, like if you go to someone's profile and like click on the 3 dots, there's an option where you can unfollow yourself, like you can unfollow them from you.
That's
So
wild. I had no idea.
like I literally found out like a couple weeks ago. So I went through and I actually like unfollowed like all these people I went to high school with from my account, because I just, it's like you've evolved. They don't really know you as this person.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
if
you
you
just
do
don't want
something
to,
differently from the person that they knew, then
yeah,
like people are watching you from the perspective or the
yeah,
idea that they have of you in their head, and that doesn't give you room to like change your mind or like new things or just be an evolved you, right? Or
yeah,
a changed you. So I feel that. I'm
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I'm just like I don't want to let these social media platforms run me,
Hmm.
because I mean, at the end of the day, they're only profitable because we are going on there and like creating content and sharing and
Yeah.
stuff. And so, like, I don't work for Instagram, and y'all, they
Ooh,
don't.
this is a word. This podcast is officially about establishing boundaries so that you can be your true, authentic, creative self. Let's just go ahead and put the title on it, guys. 'Cause
I
that's
love
a
it.
word. That's a
So
word.
yeah, so I am, my goal and what I work towards is to um just build intention in everything I do. Like
Yeah.
even the moment I wake up, like I don't check my phone anymore. I spend, I call them morning vibe checks. They're like my journal sessions, and
Hmm.
it's just kind of like me, like how do I feel today, or what what have I downloaded and processed that now has open some new level of like awareness that I just need
Yeah.
to like get it out. I do like my little mobility, like yoga flow in the mornings just
Uh,
to like get my body going. So like I'm super intentional about how I start my days, and I'm learning now how to better manage my energy so that I have more energy to create,
yeah.
because burnout is real. And it's like, you want to create and you have that, like, it's like a little spark of motivation, but it's just not enough momentum to get you going. So,
Yeah. And yeah, that is so good. Like everything that you're saying, I believe will be so um they're pretty much gems for whoever is going to be listening to this episode, because I feel like too, like especially with social media. And I okay, to go back on what you were saying about like when you were complaining about social media
mhm,
and then you got it taken away or whatever, like your mindset about it kind of made it what it was for you. And just like
mhm,
what you said about I'm sorry, it's so much you said. I had to write notes, child. Uh even what you said about when you live and operate from a positive space, you will receive it. Or if you
mhm,
don't, if it's negative, then that's the only thing you'll see.
mhm,
So I think about myself too with social media, like I grudgingly do it. And recently I was just like, you know what, we got to take it, we have to use it as a tool. And yes, it's going to change. But like Mel, do you even like when things are the same all the time? You kind
mhm.
of don't trip when things change, and it keeps you on your toes. Like, and it's a free platform, so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But what I learned too is like if I look at it in a negative space, it's gonna be really tough for me. It's only gonna make it harder for me. So I need to find the positive. And when I thought about it, I said, the reason that, we were hearing the ding, ding, dings from Squarespace in 2020, was because of social media. The reason I've been able to work with the brands that I've been able to work with is because of social media. They found me there. The reason that people reach out to me like, oh, I saw your work and on my friend's page and she shared it, social media. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that we are sitting here having this fruitful conversation is
Because,
because
yep.
of social media. So I just really had to think about the positives of this platform. And I was like, it really boils down to us. I told myself,
Mm-hmm.
I said, no one has the power to make you feel or look or do anything, right? So let's just make this app work the way we want it to work. And to go
Mm-hmm.
back on what you said with how you show up on social media now, like I only want to post stuff that I want to post. I want to
Mm-hmm.
follow who I want to follow. I want people who I want to follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And you are being intentional about using social media as a tool. So I think that's why I was like, listen, this is such a gem dropper moment because I think a lot of us, while social media has been extremely beneficial to our businesses and to like art in a major way, people from around the world can discover us as artists and discover our work and buy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We too know that with everything, there's a bad side. It can be, you know, perverted or changed to be a bad thing if it's used in the incorrect way. So that's just the word. Like, and it really boils down to how we want this thing to work for us, and we have the power to change that. And we don't work for social media.
Yeah, no,
Aaron
absolutely.
said it. Perryn Ryan said it. So
We
let's get
don't.
into like the creative process. I would love for you to, share how you go about it from start to finish, like, and as much as you're willing to share. I
Yeah.
would love to learn, and for our listeners to hear how that journey looks for you.
Okay. So,
And you don't
I
have to
made,
be a technical girl. And
oh no,
it don't have to be the brands one. I know I've been asking and a lot of people go like, oh, when somebody inquires, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. But
oh
we're
no,
confined to like what they want. But when that creative spark happens for you, when it's just you creating for the sake of creating, what does that process look like for you?
okay. So, um, I don't know. Like let me just think how I want to say this. So, my creative process has been like a windy road because when I first started, and it's so funny because when I first started in 2020, I was just having fun. And then the all of the projects and brand collabs and commissions and like selling, it created this pressure and it kind of like zapped the fun out of it.
Mm,
And so now I finally feel like I'm getting back to the fun of it. Because I just decided I just want to make what I want to make.
yeah.
So because all of my work is, well, so I'll start with inspiration. I'm really open to like inspiration. So it can come from anywhere. Like right now I'm working on a moon cycle series,
Mm-hmm.
and the inspiration from that was, so I was on TikTok this like
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago. TikTok is like, I don't even know what to say about TikTok.
TikTok is a whole world, I feel like. And you can either learn some really dope stuff,
I, yeah,
laugh really hard, or somebody can say something that's thought provoking, like, hold on, wait a second.
I know. And be
Oh, girl.
text. Like
Yeah.
I had to delete TikTok off my phone because I was spending too much time. Like that little box would pop up, like, oh, it's been 30 minutes, and I would just cancel, like cancel, and like,
Or
I
you
mean,
get one of those TikToks, like, you've been on here for hours. And I'd be like, shut up.
like get out of here, mind your business, and
Yeah.
like, okay.
But you don't
So
realize it until it happens. Like, oh my
I
God, I've been on this
know.
girl forever. Yeah.
I was on there a couple weeks ago and I saw this video. This girl was talking about this new like cycle tracking app called Stardust. This
Mm-hmm.
is not an ad, guys. This is just me. The app. And yeah, so I looked like she was just talking about how it's like woman owned and they don't sell your information to like third parties or whatever. And I
Mm-hmm.
was using Flow, which I
Yeah, that's
didn't
the one
really
that I
like.
use. I think
Yeah,
I'll try Stardust again.
switch
This
to
is not an ad,
Stardust.
but I may try it.
Switch to Stardust. Like, so I mean, I'm a very spiritual person. I don't put too much like stock in astrology, but I definitely think that like we are smaller parts of a larger universe. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that it's an accident that like there's a connection between us and like stars and planets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this app, they basically, it's kind of got that element to it. So
Mm-hmm.
they show you like the moon phases like as your cycle happens, so it's waxing, full moon, waning moon, whatever, but then they tell you like the different types of moon, like your moon cycle. Like apparently I'm a purple moon witch and there's like a red moon witch, and it's all based on like when your cycle happens. And I thought
Okay.
it was so interesting, and I was like reading about like what is purple moon witch and what is a red moon witch, and I thought, oh, I should create a series around this.
Mm-hmm.
So like I say all that to say that like literally inspiration comes to me from wherever. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just, I try to just always have open energy and not be closed off to like the things that are around me, or it could be something I read on Google or a YouTube video I watched. Like it come from anywhere.
Anywhere, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like open to inspiration in whichever way it wants to come to me. And then I, sometimes I'll get like visuals of like what I would like the finished artwork to look like, but I don't tie myself to that outcome
That's
because
good.
yeah,
It changes.
it does. I had I had a boss who used to always say to me, lower your expectations and you'll be a lot happier. And I used to just be like, what the hell? But now I guess I'm like, you know
It
what?
makes
It like I think that her advice applies in certain circumstances,
yes.
like general.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of take that approach with my artwork. So I just leave myself open to whatever comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but all of my art starts with a female figure. So I use reference photos for my figures. So I have like a huge board on Pinterest, probably like 700 different like reference photos for figure
Oh, for the
poses,
poses, yeah. I'm there. I'm right there with you. Yeah.
like tons. So I'll go through, and I never know what pose I'm looking for. I kind of just go through and whatever pose kind of fits the energy of what it is that I want to convey. So like
Mm-hmm.
purple moon witch artwork, for example, apparently a purple moon witch is, and it's based on like your cycle. That during that time is like a time of like hibernation and like rest and stuff. And so while working on that, I was thinking about that. So I was looking for poses that were kind of in that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I find one that I like, that's when the sketching starts. And so once I have like a figure down, like I usually just do like a quick like blocked out like line, like croquis or whatever of the
Yeah.
figure. And then from there I kind of just like sketch and add different elements. Like, do I want to add a moon, or do I want to add this arched doorway so it looks like she's inside of a space hibernating, and then
Mm-hmm.
like outside is happening here, like colors. It's really just like an experiment. I have no idea. Like, and I know that's probably somebody's gonna be listening and is like, how does this help me? But like,
It's
it's just
just to let it flow. Let your creative process flow. Like and a big part of this podcast as well is knowing that everyone's process looks different, and even our own process looks different.
yeah,
Sometimes it's more extensive, and sometimes I'm so in the flow that I can finish an illustration in like 45 minutes to an hour because I'm like zeroed in.
I wish I could. I mean, I used to be able to do that, but now like it takes me like a week to finish something. And it's just
See,
because,
I mean, it's different for everybody. Like, I
yeah,
really do. I kick everybody out. I'd be like, don't bother me. It's
yeah.
be zeroed in.
So okay, since you like brought up how like our own processes can change, like so I used to be able to like sketch in front of the TV, like watch TV while I do it. I cannot do that anymore. It's like
What?
I will get sucked in. Like I don't know. It's like I'm trying to like divert my energy in two different directions at the same
Right.
time, and then I end up frustrated because I haven't done as much as I wanted to do with the artwork,
Mm-hmm.
or I just wasn't focused. So it's like I feel like my creative process is it has to be quiet because I actually feel like I am in like direct communication with whatever like spiritual creativity there is.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not focused, then it's like, bye. Like you obviously aren't ready to do this right now. And then what ends up happening is I sit there and I try to force myself, and then I get frustrated and I'm like, okay, let me put this away. So
Yeah.
like it's only like in the last 6 months that it's like, okay, headphones in, no TV. Like I can't even be in the room with the TV. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I sit down and draw here.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot make process videos in like while I'm working because that also takes me out of the flow because I have to
You know,
worry about
somebody's gonna see it, or
like
yeah.
and what helped me to feel okay with that decision because you look on social and everyone's doing like these process videos and from all these different angles, and it like makes you feel like you have to do that. And
I really don't see. Like, I've done those, but those are like for paid partnerships sometimes.
mhm,
But I think too, I'm in a space where I'm like, dang, I really can't move the camera. Like, I need to set up a
mhm,
camera over here. It needs to be a camera right here, and then
yeah,
it be one at the top. Because for me to stop, that's gonna throw me off.
yeah,
Yeah.
it drags out the process, it takes you out the flow, like
Yep.
it's just too much. And what helped me to like really um just be okay with like that's not for me
Mhm.
was I think I told you like a couple months ago when I was reading Rick Rubin's book The Creative
Oh
Act.
yes,
Like
I have
literally
that now.
like please read it. He literally talks about in the book how like your like the audience is second. The
Yeah.
audience.
Okay. I think I got to that part. He was like, oh God, because he made a reference about a musician, and the musician was like, I totally know what part you're talking about because I got the audible and I was sketching when I listened to it, but he did say the audience is second. And then
Mm-hmm.
I watched the episode. I don't know if you listen to Carisha, please, but Summer Walker was like, I love my fans, but this is for me. Like, and
Yeah,
I was like, man, like as harsh as it could come off, you want us to create with ourselves in mind too. I mean, that's
yeah,
the only true place we can create, right? We can't. Yeah. So when
yeah,
she said it, I was like, I'm sorry. I love my fans and hopefully y'all get mad at me, but this is for me. It's like, yeah, that's so true. So when I read the book, when I listened to the book, I remember him saying that, and I was like, it gave me permission to just be like, for real,
F
this is for me. Yeah, like for real.
yeah, I like literally can't think about anyone else. I know it's different when you're doing like paid work, commission work,
Yeah.
but even that now I'm starting to be more intentional about the kinds of projects that I want to be involved in and like the brands like so I signed with an agency last March and they've been great, but I realized that like my work is about women, and so I want to work with brands that are aligned with that. So
Right.
like, and I won't say my list of like dream brands, but I have a list. um, so like I'm even this whole idea of like the audience is second, like I'm also applying that to like paid projects too, because if I don't love what I created, then I'm not gonna or love what I'm creating or
Mhm.
whatever. I'm not gonna enjoy the process. I won't be happy
Right.
with the final work. And that's important to me. I mean, you know, sometimes brands are like, we're it's great, we love it. And I'm like, I hate it. But you know, like
Yeah, I feel like we've like if anyone that's listening has worked with brands, there has been a time where you were like, okay, like that's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah, I feel
Like, I
you.
don't know about this color story. You sure you want to go with this? Or
You sure you want that shade? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like my creative process is very open in terms of it's just an intuitive process. Like I don't have like you know, some people are like, okay, well, you know, I've got to have my coffee before and you know, I have to do it this way. The only thing that is constant and that is that it always starts with like a female figure, and then where
yeah.
it goes from there, I have no idea.
Right.
So,
And that's okay. Like, girl, I mean, we have these ideas of how everybody else is doing things, which goes back
mhm,
to you saying, like, I don't want to be caught up in what everybody else is doing.
mhm,
And I think too, being on social media and learning different tips and things from everybody or learning from Skillshare and learning from, art teachers and things like that, you have to understand that that's the best way that works for them, right?
mhm,
And you have to take the meat and throw away the bone. Like you have to be able to take it for what it is and see what works for you ultimately.
yeah,
And that goes with anything that you learn, like online or, you know, they are speaking from what works for them, which is great, and they're willing to
mhm,
share that. But we have to remember, like, maybe what works for them don't work for me, and that's okay.
right,
And it's okay for you to find that for yourself. And I love that you said it's more intuitive. Like, I know a lot of times, like, people create, and they're like, "Oh, I just draw this because I like it," and that's cool too. I mean, I feel like it's different layers and levels to like what we draw, how we draw it, what message we want to, send or
mhm,
communicate. But ultimately, it stems from us as the source of this creation, like us
yeah,
as like the engine behind whatever we produce and share with the world. So to be in tune with where you are from your experiences, something that piques your interest, which is obviously something that interests you, something that you like, or a subject you want to cover, or whatever. It just stems from you.
mhm,
So to be in tune with yourself and to be in your own lane, or somebody said on TikTok, it's a highway of lanes because we're way more
mhm.
complex than we lead on. And I'm like, yeah, we are complex beings. So your highway of lanes.
That was good.
Um, and that's why it's important for us to really tap into like what works for us, what we like, what we want to do. I told my husband
Mhm,
yesterday, I said I'm at the age of my 36 years where I'm like, I'm not going to do anything that I don't enjoy. Like, I'm
mhm.
not going to create content that's not fun for me because
Yeah,
it just takes a lot more energy to do something that you don't want to do. And then that will translate to your work. It will translate to what you share, and people gonna pick up on it. Girl, you don't look
mhm,
like you want to do that. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? And two, like having a family, having kids, like whatever time I got, I want it to be fun too.
yeah,
Like I felt you earlier when you was like, I want to have fun and I want what I'm doing, I want to enjoy it. And like, who's to say like we can't? And I think
mhm,
like, yeah, there's moments we have to power through or whatever. And I think too, it's just like self development and self growth, like what we, how we want to evolve as people or improve on, or this is for me. Okay.
mhm.
Like if I want to do this thing or this is what I envision or want how I want to create my life, these are some things that I'll be doing.
Right.
But I feel the same way. I don't want to be muddling through life. I don't want to be
Mhm.
like, unhappy with what I'm doing. And that,
Yeah,
what? Tell me I can't.
yeah,
I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna tell you no. Like, I don't believe that. Life is gonna life regardless, but anything that I have kind of like the power to make sure that I'm enjoying or that aligns with me and that works for me, I'm gonna do that. So
yeah,
I love that you touched on that. And I love that you were honest about like this is how the process looks. It looks different sometimes. This will work for
Mhm.
me. I used to do this. I don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, because it's different every time. You know,
Hmm.
my 1 hour illustrations, those come like hardly, but I be in such a zone. Have you like that movie Soul? Like when he's in
Oh,
the
I saw that movie.
girl, so he talks about that. I mean, it touches on like creativity and how when you in the
Mhm.
zone is you just zone out.
Yeah.
My kids will be like, "Mommy, mommy, mm-mm. Mommy, mommy." But those are really beautiful moments, and they don't happen often, like
Yeah.
at all, really. So when I have it and I feel it and I know what it is, don't bother me.
Gotta go with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you touched on that. Let me. It was something else that you said. Uh, girl, because you was coming with the gems.
I just be talking. Sometimes I don't even know what I said, and I'm like, oh, okay,
I promise you everything you said today was so fruitful. No, for real. Like, seriously. Okay, so I will ask you this. What would you say is the part of your creative process that you enjoy the most?
mommy. The finished
The
piece,
finish.
just because it didn't exist before, and I
Ah,
like made something that like didn't exist, and it's here now for people to enjoy. It's an extension of me and whatever I might have been feeling or going through or inspired by.
mhm.
Um, it's like its own entity. It lives outside of me now. So that's probably like that is definitely the favorite part. Because, the process, the actual creative process, there are peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
But the finished piece is, yeah, that's my favorite part.
Yeah. It's kind of like you getting through like those peaks and valleys. It's kind of getting through that journey and coming to the end of that, experience, right?
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I get new inspiration and I get to start something new and
Yeah.
create something else that didn't exist before. So I drink, the tea brand
Yeah.
yogi.
Uh-huh.
So I drink those every morning, and they have like a little message on the little thing.
Yeah.
So I always read the messages every day. Sometimes they resonate and other times they really resonate. But there's one that I get all the time, and it says don't it says something to the effect of like don't don't leave this earth still full, or don't die without like leaving everything
Oh my
here.
God, I feel like I got that one too. Like,
I always
don't
get
let the
that.
things that, oh God, I know what you're talking about. Pretty much don't let the things that live in you, like your create creative ideas or all that die with you. Like,
Yeah,
yes.
I always get that, and so I just take it to heart. And
Yeah.
I really think about like, well, if I died tomorrow, like, would I have any regrets about like not finishing something, not making a piece of art, not doing this, not doing that? And so
Mhm.
that's kind of like it's like a little secret like motivation for me to keep creating even when I don't, maybe don't have the energy to do so.
Mhm.
um I don't force myself though to create.
Mhm.
If there's no inspiration, I don't make anything.
Right.
Like, I know a lot of people, a lot of artists are like, I'm going to get up every day and I'm going to make something. That's great for your practice, but I realize that like I have to operate from a place of satisfaction, and if I'm feeling frustrated, that only prolongs the stuckness.
Mhm.
So I only create when there's inspiration. So,
I dig
yeah.
that. I dig that. I love that you, even when, you see others do things a certain way, you really do tap into like what works for you.
Mhm. I
And
have to.
yeah, and no, we all should, and we all kind of have to if we want to enjoy, you know, our creative processes, like to enjoy the journey so that it won't suck. Like,
Yeah.
and you know what I'm saying? So whatever works for you. Even too, like if you feel like you gotta power through it and that's your practice, then that's your practice. But I think we just have to, pretty much be confident, stand 10 toes down in like what we call our journey and our
Mhm.
artistic process. And I love that. I'm so excited for everyone to kind of like hear all these points because we do need to be encouraged in this way with everything on social media. And I know a lot of us consume so much
Mhm.
that we kind of lose sight on the things that we want because we feel like we have to show up in a way to be seen or for our work to be like seen by people or, and now we're like we're monetizing it too, which kind of gets,
Yeah.
kind of cloudy in itself, like losing that in a way, but knowing that the true like creative power and like our best and most fruitful and genuine work comes from a space that is true to us and not what's working for everybody else. So
Like
boom,
absolutely.
boom, boom. We woo wooing, but we touching points that everybody
Mhm.
is. Before we wrap up, I know I've already taken like a whole hour of your day.
No, this is so fun. I
It
mean, like,
is fun. Like I know. I was telling because one of the artists that I talked to, like her kids are in school and we were talking, it was getting so good and she had to leave and I was like, damn.
oh no.
I was like, girl, you want to get back on? Because I think too, like starting this podcast, and this is like side note, starting this podcast has been so like low key healing for me because I mean, I do feel isolated being an artist and have my own business, and
Mhm.
sometimes I think things and stories I make up in my head and comparison, all of that. And like having these conversations with y'all, like one, people need to hear it. If this was
Mhm.
if I was listening in on artists talk about their journeys and what they like about the creative process and all of that, I eat that type of stuff up. Like
Mhm.
because it shows us as like unique individuals and that we are not all programmed to be the same thing.
Right.
I mean, be the same artist, do the same thing, have the same subject matter, all of that. We have our own like walks of journeys of life and all of that. And I think that's what we need to be hearing because with, everything that's going on today, you kind of feel like you're in a box in a way, or you have to be perceived in a certain way. And it's like, no, everybody wants different. Like everybody consumes different things, all of that. So I started this podcast to do just that. So we can have these conversations, especially Black women artists. Like,
Mhm.
between like all, and it's a lot of us. I was like, I do have other friends that I am interviewing, but I was like, we need to be talking
Yeah.
about the work we produce, how we do it, why, and not in out of obligation, but it would
Mhm.
just be so cool for everyone that's coming behind us to hear,
Yeah.
like, I can do this how I want to do it. And that way it makes space for them it holds space for them to do their absolute best work. And I was like, oh yeah, so we're gonna have a podcast and I'm actually going through, my own journey of like using my voice and really telling my story from this perspective. Like I can draw a picture all day to
Yeah.
illustrate the message that I want to get across. But I feel like, God is really nudging me to like, no, let's have conversation because I do love connecting with people. I do
Mhm.
love having these conversations. And I like to talk about deep stuff. And I
Yeah.
think that people need to hear what we have to say. Like we need to be out here. We holding space for each other, for
Mhm.
ourselves, for our work. And we Black women artists are out here. Women of color artists are out here. We have
Mhm.
so many layers to us, so many stories that are way much more complex than what the media puts out.
Mhm.
And I want the world to learn about the amazing women that I've gotten to know in the social platform world.
Yeah.
And so that's how this all started. And I just know that whoever listens to this, I know it's gonna hit the right people, and they will be encouraged to really take off and do their own thing. Because that's what this is about. At
Yeah.
its core, us creating art is like art therapy. That's my journaling process too. Like
Mhm.
drawing, I'm laying it out on the paper. And like you said, it's in the world now. Like it's not in here, it's
Yeah.
on paper. It's out there for for people to see. And somebody is waiting for what you have to say or what you have to draw. And now I'm rambling because I just feel so passionate about this, and I'm just excited that we're able to do it. So yeah. Um, I too love how you said you're leaning into this being easy for you, and that it doesn't have to be hard.
Mhm.
Um, I would talk about like mediums, things that I want to try, like sorry, oil painting. Oil painting
Mhm.
seems so big to me, and it's intimidating that I have been wanting to try it, that I haven't, and I'm just like, just do it, right?
Mhm.
Don't make it such like, too, me thinking about it as like in intimidation and in a low key a negative way makes it seem hard, and it's probably not even that. But I love how you're going like you have been working out of a space of like, it's been difficult for you, and now you're learning to lean into like the ease of your work and how you do this thing. So how have you been able to navigate that?
So okay, so I'll start by saying that this journey to like just being comfortable with the easiness of it only started at the beginning of this year. Like, and I read 5 books that kind of like really helped me to like let go of stories that I've made up and told myself were true that are not
Okay.
true. Help me to like unlearn just like a lot of things that like society tells us we should care about, we should be striving for. Um, and I realized that if I just so no, this is gonna sound counterproductive to like hustle culture, which I've also retired myself from,
Yeah,
but
same.
I'm I no longer care about like trying to have more and do more because I think just for me, whenever I focused on that, like whether it's creatively or in my business, it's distracted me from like how easeful and fun the whole process has been. So I've
Yeah.
just decided, well, like, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try anymore. Like, I've consciously made an effort to remove try, should, and want from my vocabulary. And I replaced try with do.
Intention. Love it.
Yeah. Like, I'm not trying things anymore. I'm either doing it or I'm not doing it. I'm not shoulding myself anymore. I either like there is no should. I just don't I feel like when you should yourself, it's kind of like you're trying to convince yourself to do something that like innately you know is probably not right for you or
Mhm.
whatever. So I just don't tell myself I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And then when it comes to wanting things, I think that and it's just everyone. I think we all get caught up in like wanting so much that it takes our focus off of appreciating what we have.
Yeah.
So, or what's working, it's like, oh, I don't have enough followers on Instagram, but like, are you showing up for the ones that you have now? Like, it's like, oh, I want to grow. I want to have more. I want to have more engagement, more this, more that on social media. But then, like, you don't respond to any of the people that comment that they like your artwork. So it's like you're not
Right.
even connecting with the audience you have.
And
You just
somebody
are.
said that yesterday on TikTok. She was like, "Oh yeah, Jackie, Jackie Ani. I don't know if you follow
Oh,
her.
yeah, I know who she is.
Yeah, she was like, you had 6 comments and you let them all read. Like she was like, you're not even responding to the people that you have. Like
Yeah.
when we really do. Yeah, I love that point.
So I don't want for things anymore. I appreciate things. So like my logic now is like, do I appreciate this thing enough to want to spend my money on it? Do I
Right.
appreciate this experience enough to make it happen? And like removing those things, it's just creating easefulness. So I don't feel like I always need to be like externally searching for stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and it's helped me to realize that like I already possess everything that I need in order to become the higher version of myself that I imagine. And if I don't already possess it, I trust that it's going to come to me. I don't have to go out
Yeah.
and chase it. I don't have to look for it. And so it's just like, just freeing myself from all of that. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, like life is so much easier. I was just making it difficult for myself than it needed to be.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so like, it's helped me to like, just going back to what I was saying about like, social media and not looking at other people. Like, it's like now I don't have that desire of like wanting my artwork to be something that it's not. So I
Mm.
have, it's like created this easeful process of like, this is what I'm creating. This is what it looks like. This is what the situation is. There's one of the books that I read was called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And he
Mm-hmm.
has this section about happiness and unhappiness. And he talks
Mm-hmm.
about how like nothing, like there's no such thing as a good or bad situation. There's no such thing as happiness or unhappiness,
Mm-hmm.
because whatever the situation is, it is what it is. The
Right.
situation is neutral. What makes it unhappy or happy or good or bad is how we respond and we react to it. And
Right.
so I take that approach with everything. Like I'm actively working on it. So I really check in with myself and I will ask myself like, you know, how do you actually feel about this situation? It's not the end of the world. Like, um, you don't like how this artwork turned out. Okay, well, you can start over, or you can change this, you could change that, but it's not anything to get super down on yourself and it's like, oh, I'm a terrible artist, I never
Yeah.
make anything. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
this is one thing, you know, maybe the whole thing isn't horrible, I just need to step away from it and come back, and maybe I just need to move one thing or change a color. But I don't know, I just don't want to feel stressed out, and so I just
Yeah.
decided that I'm just not going to. And that means that I have to that means I have to divorce myself from like very common thinking that like a lot of society tells us we should be thinking this way, or we should be wanting these
Yeah.
things, we should be striving for this. Like, yeah, so
I
that's how
100% ride that way with you. It doesn't have to be that. Like, I know I'm pretty deep, but sometimes I be telling myself it is not that deep. Like, it's
yeah.
not. Like, you don't have to react in this way. And there, like, sometimes too, like, I have to tell myself there are no bombs dropping, there's no war
Mm-hmm.
happening. Like, you really have to take a step back. I took this watercolor class last summer, and the teacher he would always say, because I'd be like, what do you think of this? And he'd be like, well, first of all, what do you think of it? And I was like, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, did you take 15 steps back? Did you step away from it and see it from a
Mm-hmm.
different perspective? Like, he wants you to see it from afar. And that stuck with me because that's how I believe we need to look at a lot of things that happen to us, like, and how we, you know, respond to the things that happen in our lives. And then two, it aligns with our artwork too. Have you
Yeah,
taken a step back to see it from a
a
more
different
from a
perspective.
different perspective? And is it as bad as you feel it is right now in your head, or
Mhm.
um
I just go for walks. Like, if I feel like I'm at that point where I'm getting frustrated
mhm.
with something I'm creating, I will either go for a walk or I'll call a friend and talk to them on the phone. But I have to like, and sometimes that might last a couple days where it's like, I just don't even need to look at it. And
Yeah.
then I come back with fresh eyes and it's like, oh, it's actually great. I love it. Like,
Right. Oh my goodness, I've done that too. And I was like, okay, this is kind of dope. Okay, I'll probably change X, Y, and Z, and then we'll just keep it moving. You really do
yeah,
have to step away. You really do. Um, that's a word. what would you say is like one project that you enjoyed the most that was like, ugh, like I know many can have taken your breath away. Your work is beautiful, but what would you say like is one of your most memorable projects that you've done for yourself, or if you've done it for a client and it totally aligned with you as a person and what you want to create?
So, I mean, I'm grateful for every single project, and
Right.
there are a few that are really like have really okay. So, it's more than one project.
Okay.
So, first, I'll say the Pure Leaf project, where I had two murals here in New York, and then that was at the end of 2021, and then I worked with them again last year, and I had a mural in Chicago. And that project was super meaningful just because I'd never seen my artwork to that scale.
Uh,
Like, so the murals in New York, one was in the city and one was in Brooklyn. The one that was in Brooklyn, like the wall was like 80 feet. Like it was humongous.
yeah.
So to like see it that way, and like there was like a whole like little rollout we had to go, and it was in partnership with Pure Leaf and Ariel Astoria. I don't know if you know, she is the poet.
Hmm.
And
I remember that. Oh, yes, I remember that. Yes.
that was my first time meeting her, which she's super sweet, and I have
Yeah.
worked with her a few times since then.
Hmm.
But being out there, like we had to go and do like a video and photo because it was a whole rollout for a campaign.
Hmm.
And seeing people react to it just walking by, and it made me realize that like this is a process for me, one, but this has such a huge impact in the world, and this is how I want to contribute, and it's so valuable, and it's such a positive way to have a presence in the world, and I would be doing a disservice to myself if I didn't share. And so
Yeah.
project really just made me like, I mean, I was just like, I want to create more art for like public consumption. I myself personally don't want to be painting murals because like, again,
My
not my
Lord.
ministry. Yeah. But
It's
you
so
know,
good to me.
it's just, yeah, I don't want to be painting them, but if somebody else want to paint the artwork, you have fun. But
Right.
I was like, I really, it, like I'm supposed to be sharing, so that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And then the second project was the Kate Spade last year, and that was like a really fun project, but it wasn't so much the project itself, it was the response that I got from so I was in Chicago last June, like maybe like a week or two after that Pride collection came out, and I was just shopping with my friend who lives there.
Mm.
Hey Jamar. Um him downtown, and I was like, oh, where's Kate Spade? And he's like, oh, it's a Kate Spade in whatever mall we were in, and they
Mhm.
literally just closed. So I was like banging on the window like, oh, please, please, and they're like, we're closed, we're closed. And I could see they had a whole setup of the whole collection behind like right there. And so I yelled through the window. I was like, I'm the artist that created that. And so it was just like the excitement. Like they opened the door, they let me in, we took all these photos, we had like a really great conversation, but it was just like they were telling me how much people loved it and how it was selling. But it was they were more excited to like meet me, which had never happened before. It's like people are
Mhm.
excited about the art. And
Yeah.
so it just reminded me that like, yeah, I'm creating art and people are attracted to the art and they love it. But that encounter made my whole trip. Like it made my whole trip. But
Yeah.
it like reassured me that like you're the artist behind the work, but like you also matter, and like people care and want to see you. And
You.
like
Yeah.
so that was probably like my most like favorite. And I also had the mural in Chicago at the same time. So like one of the employees was like, "Oh, you have a mural too? Like I live by it." So it was just like a
Oh,
whole thing. Really
wow.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are probably like my two most impactful projects, just because they reminded me that like I'm supposed to be doing this and I need to be sharing more of myself. So
I love it. I
yeah.
love it. That's incredible. That's incredible. I love that.
Thank you.
Um, and I love the K Spade collaboration, and I remember the mural. And like to piggyback on what you said, like knowing that you're supposed to be doing it, there are projects like um philosophy, like that, the way that works and so seamlessly, and how welcoming they were and how they really want to be a part. And I was like, y'all want me to hold a mic? What? Oh, like y'all want me to talk to y'all people? And it was just so cool, like to work with people. And those are, to have projects like that is just so fulfilling as an artist, right? I mean, because it's fun when you create the work that you want to create for yourself, but when you create with a brand or with a person that truly values you as a person, like they see you, like, yes, I love
Mm-hmm.
your work. We're big fans, but you,
Mm-hmm.
like, we love you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that, I know that gives you all the fuzzies and all the things. So to encounter that, yeah, that's so lit. I'm excited. So I loved hearing that. Uh so my last question, and I'm so excited to hear
Mm-hmm.
your answer too. My last question, and what I've been asking everyone, is if you could talk to if you can talk to Perryn when she started this journey in 2019, or
Mm-hmm.
even when you were working in fashion, in like in general, like what would you tell her from everything you experience and know now that would encourage her, inspire her, and just be like, girl, don't trip. It's not, it's okay. You know?
I would tell her, it's so funny you asked this question. Okay. So I would tell her that you're already doing everything you're supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
Keep doing it and don't let yourself get distracted and sidetracked by what everyone else is doing and what everyone else is saying you should be doing.
Hmm.
You're fine, because it got me here. I'm here now.
Right.
So I wouldn't tell her to do anything else, anything differently, except stay focused on you.
Yeah.
Um so I think you follow her, Dami. She does the wedding stationery. She's based in Houston.
Yes.
Um so we're like really good friends,
Hmm.
and one thing she always says is focus on your focus. And like that's what I would tell myself from 4 years ago, is like, this is what you're focused on, focus on that, put your blinders on, and don't look at what anybody else is doing,
Yeah.
because it'll slow you down. um I yesterday I was having a conversation with a friend because so I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like, I don't know how I stumbled upon it or it came to me, but it's called human design. And so I've been kind of like,
Hmm.
researching it or whatever, like, oh, what's my type and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
like reading about it. And I read something yesterday that really resonated, and it made perfect sense. And I'm like, okay, so this is how I'm supposed to be managing my energy. And this is why I will feel exhausted, or it's like I want to be home, but I also want to be social at the same time.
Yeah.
And I realized yesterday from what I read that I've always been in this place of like self-management, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know that I was doing it. Oh, sorry. There's like New York City and fire trucks. Can you hear
I
it?
love it. I don't
Oh,
even care. Like this app, this platform, it has a noise reduction, so it'll only
oh,
pick up on your voice, but I listen to podcasts of people who stay in New York. It does not. I actually love to hear New York in the
Oh
background.
God.
I actually love New
Because
York.
you don't that's
That's
because
why
you
I
don't
feel like
live
that's
here.
where I'm supposed to be. Like that's where I thrive the most. Like yeah, like New York. I come alive in New York in ways that I'm like I feel like I need to be here more often.
The next time you come, call me
I
because
am. I am. I was only there for like 2 days, and I was like, we were already. I was meeting one of my clients. I don't know if you follow Yasmin Cheyenne.
I don't think
She's a
so.
wellness like advocate, and she's so good. And I met her there in New York, and it was only like 2 days, and I was supposed to meet her, and then I met up with an old masterclass coach that I
Mm.
had been in communication with, and we like grew to like be really good friends. And I met her there. So we had stuff planned and I met with Yaz and I was like, New York is big. Okay. To
Yeah.
me and how to move and maneuver, like it's big. So, but I will definitely be reaching out next time I come to New York. You want to come to
Yeah.
Fashion Week? I'll let you finish saying what you was going to say, but
Um,
we need to talk about Fashion Week because I really want to be there, but we'll talk about that later.
um yeah, so I was saying that I've always been had a good balance of like self-management, like my energies and stuff.
Mhm.
But because I didn't know what it was or like what it was called,
Right.
it meant that I didn't know how to stay locked into it or tapped into it. And now I feel like I have a better grasp of like, so I call it like my hermit energy is like I want to be inside. I need like my own like safe space where I can like be my muse and like process things and work through whatever things and
Mhm.
that time to be creative.
Mhm.
But then there's also a side of me that wants to be very social and be out and be part
Mhm.
of community. And I I've was I so in the beginning, like when I this art business started, I think I did a pretty good job of managing the two energies. And
Mhm.
then I would say like in the last like year, I got off balance. And so I was spending a lot of energy in that kind of like hermit space.
Mhm.
And I didn't really know how to get myself out of it to be more social.
Yeah.
And now I have like the language and the understanding of it. And so I'm able to like lock into whichever energies I need to access to do things.
Mhm.
And so I would definitely tell my younger self also that like pay attention to how you feel and your don't let your brain outthink your feelings because you're going to end up acting from a place of frustration. So just
Yeah.
stay tapped into how you feel and operate from that.
Yeah.
So,
I love
yeah.
that. And speaking of human design too, I think I learned that I thrive in community. Like community is my thing. Like I bring people together. And I was like,
Mhm.
dang, like when I think of
That makes sense.
when I think about my groups of friends, like or just like things that I do, I like to bring like this podcast. It started as just me doing it by myself, and I was like, this don't feel right for me to just for people to only hear from me one perspective. I was like, I'm gonna bring in all these amazing women that I know, and we're gonna talk about it together. So I was able to put words to what I knew I felt was like something that I loved.
Mhm.
Um, and another part of it was um what was it called? It's the different types of designs. I think I'm soul, soul, some.
There's projector, reflector, generator, and a manifester.
I
I'm a
think I'm
generator.
a generator. I think I'm a generator, but it's really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it really like I wouldn't say that I'm too like into astrology like that, but I think for me, the way I see all of this is like God as a creator, he didn't passively create this earth. Like when he put the
Exactly.
stars in the sky, he didn't just say, oh, there's some things that are going to shine at night. Like, no, like
Mm-hmm.
gravity and like frequency from the earth and how it helps heal our bodies. Like, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like God is too lit for us to, first of all, put him in a box. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah.
The way that he made this world and how everything kind of works together and it works for us. It's supposed to, but
Mm-hmm.
we're like messing it up.
Yeah.
Global warming and everything is kind of throwing things off. But I think like the moons and all of that, like it plays a big part in how our bodies work and how we
Mm-hmm.
feel. And I think we need to tap into that even with the seasons. Like January, I'm no longer starting my new year in January. Like
Oh, me either.
I'm starting in spring when
Yeah.
everything is blooming. Like I'm resting at that time. Like
Mm-hmm.
leaves are falling, everything's dead, everything
Dead.
is
Yeah.
pruning, everything is all of that. So I want to be in the same rhythm as nature. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like it takes such a weight off of me. And I realized even like in college, I was like, I thrive in the spring. Like that's when I
Mm-hmm.
want to do new things and I want to embark on new journeys, not in January. So when
Yeah.
everybody be like, "Oh, we went to a vision board party," I was like, "Count me out." I don't do that. Like I never liked it, and sorry to whoever likes vision boards. Like I
I'm
like
with you.
mood boards for projects, and
Yeah.
I would mood board my life, and I know what life I want to create, and that's fun. But to put this thing together to say that I have to do this thing this year, that puts me in a box because I may not even
Mhm.
be the same person that I am in the second half of this year, and I may not even want the same thing. So I don't like to put those. I don't like to confine myself to things, period. I just
Yeah.
don't like it. So me and my husband were just like, we were already not big on goal setting. We knew a word for the year. And
Mhm.
after we were just like, we're just gonna let God do his thing. Like we know um we'll be aligned with everything that we're supposed to receive. And nothing like
Mhm.
whatever's not for us, it won't be ours. And that's okay. And we're gonna be good regardless. And like with the gratitude, what you was talking about before, like appreciating what you have versus what you want, it's just like way better. It just makes life more easeful and it makes you enjoy the things that you have. And stewardship, like
Mhm.
a big part of that too, taking care of the things that you have. Because you can't do that when
That's
you look
that's when you
over.
attract that's when you attract more
Yeah,
also. Like my experience has been the more grateful I am is when more things come to me without me even like
without you
looking
even
for it or
exactly. Like I know when I'm like, oh, I have to do this and make sure I show up here and do all these things. Like that don't it don't make the things that has happened for me happen. Like those
yeah,
people so happen to show up and find me from places I wasn't even trying. I was just
exactly.
doing me. And they were like, oh, we love this. And I was like, oh, I just kind of like put that
Mhm.
together. I loved it and I put it up and I shared it. But I went really hard on this one. Well, nobody responded to that. So that's just like goes to show that whatever you have to be grateful for what you have and present where you are. And everything you will attract everything that's for you. So
And flexible. And flexible.
yes. And open. I love like that's my thing. Like and I
I
don't like to be confined or like this is what I'm doing, boom, boom, boom. Like
yeah.
ugh. And that's what makes the business part of all of this so stressful for me because it's like, oh, these are the numbers or oh, whatever. And I'm just like, I let my husband be the CFO. That's
Mhm.
you, bro. Like, I can't touch it. Can't.
Yeah, it's I'm I'm starting to really re-examine like how I run my business and like I'm not really interested in like doing it in the most traditional way. Like I know like numbers and all that stuff is important because that's how you gauge like how like growth from this year to the next year.
Yeah.
But
But that's still hustle culture in a way too.
it is like
Yes.
I'm it's like, I mean, no, this is gonna sound very like counter culture to say, but like, I'm not striving for growth. I think that that's just a side effect, a positive side effect of like everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not interested in like striving for it. Like, it's not a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've realized that when I've tied myself to those kind of goals, I become like single minded and I'm only focused on that. And I get these little, I have my friend that I talk to, like, we probably talk like every other day. And every time we talk, I'm like, I had an epiphany. He's like, you always have an
Oh my
epiphany.
God, that'd be me. I be like, my poor husband, because he the first one to get it, because he'd be like, what happened? I'd be like, oh my God, you have to listen. So this is how it happened. So I'm right there with you.
It's like all the time. Like, I feel like I just get these little downloads. I'm like, oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So one that came to me was that so I like to think of myself as pure magic. And I think everyone should think of themselves that way. Like,
Yeah.
you're magic, I'm magic, like whoever's listening to this, you are pure magic. And I think that we don't give ourselves credit for how powerful we are
Mm-hmm.
at like attracting things, calling things in.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, like, I fully like you, and I know everyone has different like spiritual beliefs. Like, you sound like you're like Christian, or
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't identify with like a specific religion, but I'm definitely very spiritual. And so I believe in the same principle that, like, I know Christianity talks very much about how like we're a part of like the body of Christ, we're a part of God and all that other stuff. I believe the same thing, that we are a part of the bigger universe.
Yeah.
And so like with that in mind, I ask myself sometimes, like, when I start to feel like I might be attaching myself to an expectation or outcome, I will literally tell myself, like, why are you limiting yourself? Like, you're operating from this very human experience where like my brain can only come up with like 3, 4 possible scenarios or ways this can work.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm a part of the universe, which is infinite. So like, why would I want to be so focused on like these outcomes that I've dreamt up when there's like an infinite amount of outcomes? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to make $10,000 this month. And, you know, old me would be like, okay, that means I need to like sell on Instagram or whatever. But then it's just like, the universe is over here like, well, I have someone that wants to pay you $10,000 to draw something for their next kid. It's like, I didn't have to work hard for it.
Yeah.
So
You don't
I've
have
just,
to go like searching or striving to get these things.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
just, there's way more, like, God, universe, whomever has way more solutions for our problems than the very finite amount of solutions we could come up with. So like,
Yeah.
why would I be out here
Why are
like
you so
relying
stressed?
like
Like we say, me and my husband, we be like, that's God way. Why would I stress about that? Like it'll come to me. It's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. Like, yeah.
best case scenario energy only? That's what I've been saying to myself all year. Like, people are like, well, worst case scenario. No, I don't know her. I only know best
I don't subscribe to that narrative.
scenario energy only. Like,
Yeah.
it'll work out. And my dad he used to always say, everything's gonna work out in the end. And if it doesn't, then it's not the end. So I
Yeah.
like myself that, like, okay, well, then there's more to come. So
Yeah.
just relax and like have fun and
Relax.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
I
I
know.
don't know.
I'm so down there. I so love that you're down with just having fun. I was like, I feel like when I became an adult, I was just like, oh, I have to do adult things. And now all I do is I want to be in wonder and I want to learn and I want to enjoy life and experience new things and people. Like, it's like, let's just have a good time and enjoy our time here because it could be our last day. And then, like, to be caught up in something that we can't ultimately control, like, that's
Yeah.
a lot of things that are out of our hands to begin with. And, like, we have to see at what perspective are we seeing this from? Are we taking 15 steps back? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I responding in a negative way? Am I only seeing negative? Am I, responding or working or navigating out of a negative space? Is that why
Mm-hmm.
this looks this way? Like, really just like taking things with ease. I just am and choosing, like, and not letting like the waves of this world like just move us every which way, like
Yeah.
be anchored in like what you truly believe in and
Mm-hmm.
operate from that space is so important. So, girl, this is so good. This don't need to be the last time I talk to you. We need FaceTime days or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
home every day and working
I see my
and
kids running around, but whatever. Like, this was such a great conversation. I know the person thinking, listening to this now is really being fed. I am. And I've just enjoyed having this conversation with you. Thank
me
you
too.
for reminding us to stay in our highway of lanes. And that's where all the magic
Mhm.
is. And that's where our best moments in work and experiences come from. So thank you so
Mhm.
much for being here, Perryn Ryan.
I am very honored and thank you for giving me the space to just share
Yeah.
because, you know, it's nice to finally say this to someone and not just like write all of this stuff in my journal every morning. So,
This was
so
your virtual vibe check.
well, I hope whoever listens to this episode also, take what resonates and what doesn't. You can leave it there.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, lastly, I want everybody to know where to find you. So, where can we find
yes.
you?
So I am on all socials, even the ones that I don't use, but there's an account there.
Yeah, same.
I'm on all socials at Perryn Ryan Art.
Mm-hmm.
PerrynRyanArt. Insta, TikTok, kind of more of a lurker on there, but I'm there. Um, and also my website where you can buy um, editioned art prints. And also, I just started, well, it's about to start, but I'm going to be offering like commissioned portraits. Um, and that's at www.perrynryan.com, PerrynRyan.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, girl, let me know when you open your books for portraits. I've been trying to find some for me and my husband's our room. And
Mhm.
I think it'll be really fun to have profiles, but I wanted it to be like in your style, so that'll be really fun.
It is. So it's not there. The thing that I was doing the gold leaf for today,
Mm-hmm.
it's a portrait for a friend. So this is like really quickly, this is how it kind of started. I didn't intend to offer these kind of portrait commissions, but I was inspired by something that my friend said and I drew a portrait of her and it was just for me, but I decided to send it to her.
Yeah.
But they're more like story portraits. So it's not like a literal, a lot of like it's not realistic, like a realistic
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
view.
It's your
But
interpretation of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I am incorporating. So, like for example, you have a daughter and a son. Maybe there's something like an object or something that reminds you of each of them. So like the story portrait, it encompasses like these different objects that like symbolize different parts of your life
Mhm.
or people in your life or experiences. And so yeah, I like made one for my friend and I was like, this is so cool. I should like do this for other women that want like
Yeah.
that are basically like a artistic timeline of their life or like
Yeah.
where they are in their life. So I'm going to be launching that later this month. I'm actually going to ship the first one that I made for my friend this week or over the weekend.
Uh,
Um so yeah.
that sounds
Something.
so fun. Yeah, I'll keep a lookout on for that. because I think that's way meaningful. And I want to see how we can do that. I was thinking the same thing. Like usually I would just do portraits.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now I want portraits to be a tool for women to like uplift each other. So I did this Polaroid one for myself a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom it says like a word like enough or valuable, worthy,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it'll be like a portrait, Polaroid portrait with the words at the bottom. And I was like, this would be really fun for women to give to each other. So I think I want to start niching it like as a like I want it to be a tool that women can use to. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that today's discussion sparked your creativity and inspired you to embrace your unique journey. Don't forget to share your thoughts, stories, and creations with me using today's creative prompt from the episode. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a review, and let's continue to support and inspire one another on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep creating.